Hello, today I have some pretty exciting news for those of you waiting for the cone winder. Specifically, I have received the first samples of the plastic from my molds. This is a very big step and one that I definitely want to get in place before launching the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is still a little ways away because there's going to be some mold updates. I want to do a little bit more beta testing with this to make sure no additional tweaks are needed. And the molds are definitely not finished. For example, you can see all this streaking here. And there's some other flaws around the mold. Basically, what I had them do this time was I had them not produce a final mold. I had them produce a rough draft just so we can make sure all the fit is correct. And then once the fit is confirmed correct, then they'll do the final finishing stage on all of the mold surfaces to make it nice and pretty. But I'm very happy with how all of the plastic parts turned out. As expected, everything has a lot less warping than the 3D printed parts. Everything's a lot more rigid. One of the things I'm super happy with is how the cones turned out. These do have the final finish to them, and they're just really brilliant. I'm not sure exactly how much is going to show up on the video, but it's got all of these little bumps, and those really just grab onto the yarn, and it's just pretty awesome. I put a little hole in the top for tags. The bottom has a little notch in it for holding yarn, and yeah, they just work so much better than I had hoped. And they're also flexible like this, and that's because I'm making them out of a plastic that will stand up to boiling water in case you want to submerge the cone into boiling water as part of a dyeing process or something, which I know a lot of people want to do with their yarn on cones. So we've got that. Also, something I hadn't been able to test with the 3D printed parts is this custom rubber gasket that's put onto the cone holder. And I must say that also, I love how that works. I mean, it is really stuck on there, much better than the 3D printed ones. This cone just does not move at all. One other thing people asked about was how much yarn can the cones hold? And I took a 1 pound skein and put it onto one of my 3D printed cones here. And you can see that it turned out wonderful. I mean, this is really good. And it was off of a skein, which is a lot more difficult. Here, I'll put in a video of me winding it from the skein. So in the beginning, I actually had to sit by the skein and sort of help pull the yarn off till a little bit had built onto the cone. It just was slipping too much, and this skein had a lot of twisted over portions that were kind of getting stuck. But once things got moving along, you can see that I didn't have to tend to it at all. Towards the end, the skein, again, because it wasn't wound or wrapped quite right, got some knots in it, which tested the cone winder stopping ability, which worked flawlessly. So here you can see, I mean, the cone turned out really well, and I mean, that was off of a problematic skein, so I was really happy to see that. One other thing I wanted to mention was I made this 3D printed part. So this is just designed to hold cones. I know some people have issues with cones slipping or tipping around, and this really prevents that. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this in with sand, and then this will be really heavy and, really feel like a nice quality piece. And then you slide the cones on, and it just is going to really keep that cone locked in place. So I really like that. That's something I'm probably not going to injection mold at this time. It's just another piece that I'm not sure how popular it would be, but I'll definitely give away the files to 3D print one of these. And again, what I'll recommend is filling it up with, something heavy. Basically, anything heavy that fits in there would be a good job. And then, like, if it's sand or something, then you'd probably want to, epoxy over it or something to hold it in place. Or if it's just like one big rock that you sort of set in there, then you can just leave it sitting in there without that step. Let me give you a quick overview of how the cone winder functions. So in the back, there's 3 different plugs. One of them goes to this foot switch, and that can be used to start and stop it. Another plug goes to this cone winder, yarn counter. This is something I've already released, and it just, as the yarn goes past this disc, it counts the length of the yarn. This is not something that will come with the cone winder, but it will function with the cone winder. And then that's just a power cord to the wall, or in this case, I have it plugged into a battery pack. Okay, so now you can see this piece of paper, and this is just basically something to help you position the tensioner here with the cone winder. So in this case, I have it mounted onto a board, but this board won't come with it. However, I will ship it with this piece of paper, which makes it easy to position the tensioner here and the cone winder here. So I'll still finalize this, but I was just testing out how to create and print a file like this. So that's something I'll definitely ship with the cone winder. When you're actually threading the cone winder, you just go like this. And then I have a lot of these extra posts so that you can weave it through in different ways if you want more tension or less tension. I usually find that just going around in this kind of a pattern works pretty well, but you can definitely loop it around to other places and over other pegs if you want to increase the tension further. Then to get the yarn onto the actual cone winder, I've included this little key here that holds the arms up for you. And you can see that these are actually held in place with magnets. So this doesn't fall out easily and things like that. But once you have the new cone like this, you just put it on like this, push it, and it's stuck on there pretty well. And you slide it into the arm like that, and then you can leave the key in. And I have this yarn loop here, and I stick that through, and you can take the yarn like this and sort of pull it through. After that, you'll want to just wrap it around the cone just a few times, and you could put it over there, but I don't really see a need to do that, so I usually don't. And then we're good to go. So you just start it up like this, and it winds itself back and forth. I have it at a very low speed so you can sort of see what's happening there. Let's grab the camera. So like I said before, there's a foot switch, and it will stop it and start it. It's a very soft starting mechanism. Here, I'll speed it up so you can see the softer starting mechanism. But stop it. Now, when I start it with the foot switch, it has a nice slow start like that to give you time to sort of get everything ramped up. It also vibrates a little more until it's got a few rounds of yarn onto it. Makes a little bit of extra noise, but I think that, it's about as quiet as it's going to get in this video. Most of the noise is just from winding the yarn onto the cone. There's not much to do about that, but it's very tolerable. It's a little louder than the electric eel wheel 6, my e-spinner, but I'd say it's kind of, at this point and for the rest of the cone, it's about the sound of an electric eel wheel nano, maybe a little bit more, but because you don't run this very long, it definitely doesn't seem like it'll be much of a bother. And you can see it's just running the yarn through the tensioner onto the cones at this point. Down here, besides controlling the speed with this dial, you've got this switch which can turn it on and off. If you don't want to bring the foot pedal with it, that makes it a little bit more portable. But a lot of the time, you'll have just one cord plugged into the back if you don't need the foot switch or the yarn counter. And in that case, it turned off because I unplugged the foot switch. That's just a safety feature. But here we go. And as I've shown before, I'm just gonna grab this, here's the yarn, and I'm just gonna grab it. And if it gets a jam, it doesn't really cause any problems. And it does change what it sounds like, so you'll know something's gone wrong, and you can come and see it. You wouldn't want to leave it in this state for a long time. It'd probably wear out the yarn eventually, but as long as you're in the same room or nearby, you can come and fix the tangle, or you can use the foot switch to stop it and untangle it then. One last thing I wanted to mention in this video is that I'm looking for some testers and people I can work with, especially to shoot some video for the Kickstarter. I'm looking for maybe a group of people, maybe a spinning or weaving guild or knitting guild, somebody who would get benefit from putting the yarn on cones and just to sort of test out the device. You can provide feedback while you're doing that. I'm always interested in improving my devices. So there might be some last minute changes we can make based on that feedback. But really what I'm looking for is somebody I can shoot some video of and maybe incorporate it into the Kickstarter rather than just having, like all my past videos with me and my wife doing all the work and just having a very limited number of people. I think it'd be sort of fun to get some other people from the community involved. So if you're in the area and interested in beta testing locally, definitely reach out and maybe we can set something up and do some testing. The Kickstarter for this is still several months away at least. I want to get some things finalized and get manufacturing a little bit further along before I launch the Kickstarter. So I'll keep you guys updated, and thanks for watching.